Hello everyone and welcome to Business Africa. Coming up, enlarging exploitation areas, South Sudan taking advantage of a gradual return to come to restart its oil production. Difficult reconstruction for Libyan entrepreneurs' activities have come to a standstill due to political instability and long years of unrest. And free trade agreements. The US and Kenya are in negotiations to reach a high-level global agreement on certain products and services. South Sudan is continuing its plan to boost oil production. After several years of war, Juba is taking advantage of a gradual return to come to restart its black gold production. Numerous wells and oil fields closed since 2013 are coming back to life. This is good news for the continent's third largest oil reserve, whose economy depends almost entirely on hydrocarbon.
South Sudan is poised to revive its black gold production despite the COVID-19 pandemic which is crippling the oil industry. Juba wants to take advantage of the gradual return of peace to the country to expand its oil exploitation. According to a recent outing by the Undersecretary in the country's Ministry of Petroleum, South Sudan is planning a new round of licensing as well as a major geological survey to quantify the country's resources. Although South Sudan can produce oil in 3 regions, it is currently doing so only in 2 regions. Originally planned for the first quarter of 2020, the granting of new oil exploration licenses in South Sudan was postponed until 2021, following constraints imposed by the coronavirus pandemic. The country's total production stands at between 170,000 and 172,000 barrels of oil per day, with an initial target of 190,000 barrels per day. According to the International Monetary Fund, the country's economy is growing by 4.8%.
Akol Dok is a South Sudanese political and economic analyst online from Chicago in the United States. Hello, Mr. Akol, and welcome to this program.
Thank you for having me.
What's the country expecting from the new round of exploration license sales?
Well, South Sudan expects to auction available oil blocks for prospective investors and developers. And what they want to do is they want to increase production and increase oil revenue. So with the new licensing round, they want to auction these blocks in a transparent and open way, according to the procedures established by the Ministry of Petroleum. So with the licensing round, what they want to do is they want to get the highest bidder at the best price so development can start the quickest. Many times, some countries, when they auction blocks, you have an issue where the block is given to an investor and the investor holds the blocks for years without developing the blocks. But countries now are in need of revenue, are in need of cash, are in need of oil revenue. They want development quickly. So South Sudan hopes to auction some blocks, and then it hopes that some of these blocks can begin to be developed quickly.
Can we have an idea of the 14 blocks proposed by South Sudan to investors?
Yes, well, South Sudan the Ministry of Petroleum has split up the country into 14 blocks. And in this blocks is throughout the country. And what the Ministry of Petroleum is also doing is not necessarily the blocks, it's what's in the blocks. So had it not been for COVID, they were trying to conduct hydrocarbon and mineral mappings. Hydrocarbon and mineral mapping is going to allow South Sudan to know where its resources lie. And what this is going to do is going to allow it to give blocks to investors that are viable so that these investors can develop quickly. Because before, there's a complaint from investors that, why would you give us a block and later when we explore the block, we find that it doesn't have any reserves. That's a legitimate claim. But on the other side, the government is saying, if we give you a very good block with viability and production capacity, are you going to produce that block or are you going to sit on that? So it's split into the 14 blocks. Right now, the only blocks that are producing in South Sudan are blocks 3 and 7 in Upper Nile and blocks 1, 2, and 4. Blocks 1, 2, and 4 in the Unity oil fields. And these are the only blocks that are producing oil now. And South Sudan has given away blocks through the South African Energy Fund and to the Aranto Petroleum. But what it wants to do now is it wants to identify other viable blocks other areas with economic viability. That way, when they conduct the licensing round, they can provide investors with adequate data. With adequate data, you can ensure that the investor knows that he's getting something of value, and you incentivize him to develop the block quickly. When he develops a block quickly, it's going to increase the production of the country. When you increase the production of the country, you increase revenue and opportunities for South Sudanese. So this is the plan for the Ministry of Petroleum.
What's the impact of COVID-19 on the oil industry, especially the domestic one?
COVID-19 has affected the oil industry greatly, because now that you have a reduction in oil prices, this is going to be a reduction of revenue for the governments. When you have a reduction of revenue, that's a reduction of the economy, because countries in Africa that rely heavily on oil are being heavily affected, because when your exports are down and the price of your most popular commodity is down, you're not getting the revenue you need. One, you're not getting the hard currency you need in a central bank. Two, you're not getting the money flowing into the economy as before. And three, due to the lockdowns, your local non-oil economy is shut down due to COVID-19 preventative measures. So this is something that's really affected South Sudan.
Thank you, Akol Doc, for these insights.
Thank you for having me.
Let us take a short break. When we return, we talk about the new beginning facing Libyan entrepreneurs in a country destroyed by war.
The proceeds of the oil. First of all, let me just tell you, before we come to this stage where I am now a minister, there was COVID-19 pandemic, which actually brought the prices of the oil down to zero. By that time, the predecessors whom I have in finance, they were selling the oil with the Ministry of Petroleum. One cargo was bringing almost like 20 million or less than 20 million. Okay? The other problem was the floods, which the whole 3/4 of Southern Sudan was immersed under the water. And the oil fields are in those areas which have been immersed by the floods. So that means that the technology our people are using, the Chinese technology, cannot get us the oil from all these floods. So what does it mean? It means that the production went down. And when the production went down, we were almost getting nothing. Sometimes half a cargo by the end of the month, and then sometimes one cargo by the end of the month. And you know that the oil is shared with those consortium which dig our oil out. When this comes, then it is shared among these companies and the government. The government share that time was very limited. So it doesn't go as much as 2 cargo. And that is the reason why mostly there were people went to get some repayment loans from other institutions, finances, in order to keep the government running. That was the time when the peace agreement was agreed. It was concluded. And you know the peace agreement was only being implemented by the government. There was no any other country which had helped the government of Southern Sudan to implement peace. The Troika you are talking about, the other international institutions, the countries were just talking. You implement peace, things will go well. You do this, things will go well. The only country which was helping might be Japan, and China might have brought some tents and some uniform for the cantonment, and the rest of the other countries were just talking. So it was the government implementing the peace agreement alone. That means what? Maintaining the 5 vice presidents, maintaining all these generals in the hotels, and then trying to buy cars for the vice presidents and all these things. It needs a lot of money. And the money were borrowed, and when this money were borrowed, people whom the money was borrowed from need them to be paid back. So some of your proceeds of the oil were going for payments of these loans. And that is why the arrears of the salary build up. Because there are priorities over priorities, and when priorities were over priorities, these were lot of arrears were accumulated. When I came in, I got the July arrears was not paid. August was not paid. September was not paid. October was not paid. And I came in November, okay? And I paid July, paid August, paid September, paid October. And the last 2 months which I paid were November and December, when I just went to Washington, D.C. And now we are left with January, February, and February. The reason why we are not paying the arrears is that the oil is going for the loans which have been taken before. So when you don't have a cargo to sell, or when it is given for the loan which was taken before I could come in, there is no way I can stop this thing and say, okay, give me this money, and that person will take us to the court. So the oil money is going for payment of loans and paying some of the priorities of the government. It is not that the government is sitting on the money and is not paying the arrears. Now we are working very hard. Like now, I'm talking to you. I told my people to prepare 3 months pay sheets of January, February, and March. Where am I going to get the money? If the oil has been sold in advance up to 2027, that means that I will go to 2028 to ask somebody to give me money such that by 2028 you will be given that oil. And the time when I'm gone, somebody will come in my place, you will find that all the oil of 2028 has been sold. So you will have to go for 2029. And then you sit and ask, where is the money going? Now, if I want to pay this salary, I had to get this in advance, somebody to give me money to come and pay this salary, which is the arrears. And if I don't do that, you people will go on the street. Why is the salary not paid? And if I want to pay, I will have to borrow. And when I borrow, that means that your oil is being sold in advance. So this is where your money of oil is going, my friend. There is nobody eating it. It is being sold in advance, and we pay people in advance of the money of 2 years from now, we are paying the salary of last year. What happened last year? You better go and ask those gentlemen. Because I don't know what kept them not paying the arrears. For me, I'm trying to eliminate all the arrears. But I have to borrow money to pay the arrears. And next time, after 6 months, you will ask, where is this oil of the money? Now I'm going to borrow it to pay the arrears and priorities of the government. Because the revenue is not enough to cover all this. That is why the money of the oil, sometimes you don't see it, but you hear it that it is being given. So these are the reasons which make this money of the oil you don't see.